Welcome to the Powercat Podcast, the original K-State sports show. Here's your host, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to another edition of the Powercat Podcast. Fitz and Fitz here, both in Manhattan, although Ethan Fitzgerald, my nephew, was in Kansas City for the women's basketball game, and that is the topic of discussion. Kansas State women's basketball picks up an 80-65 victory over UCF in the second round of the Big 12 tournament in Kansas City. And I'm going to start off, Ethan, with a really hard-hitting question, one I had you kind of warm up with. How is that floor at the Big 12 tournament in person?
A lot better. The letters with the camera screw it up or something, but in person it's a lot nicer. I think it looks incredible.
Okay. I think it's the angle. When you're watching on TV, it's an above angle. So it's kind of the focal point of what you're looking at. When you're at a game, you're looking across the court, not at the court. And
the frame rate can't keep up with the X's and I's, always changing in the frame. Yeah.
The court didn't bug the Kansas State Wildcats one bit. They played a pretty good game. And I've got this weird theory, and I want to get your thoughts on it. Kansas State was fortunate not to get the double bye. They needed this game.
Yeah. It's ironic. I think I said that after they lost to Iowa State, was this could be a positive. Instead of going Baylor, Iowa State, West Virginia, now you get Baylor, Iowa State, and then a UCF or BYU, which are both teams you've dominated, and you can kind of settle back into things to start the postseason. I think it was a good thing for them today.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it started slow, especially with Serena. Serena 2 points at halftime, and then she finished with 21. I think it was a good way to get them caught back up to speed against a very scrappy UCF team. Yeah. People are going to point to their record and say, oh, it's a bad team. But you got to remember, teams like UCF, this is all they have. After they lose, their season's over, especially when they have Caitlin Peterson, who's been one of the top scorers in the league the last 2 years, playing in her final game. They're going to play hard, and they're going to throw everything they have at you.
And Kansas State threw a lot of pressure at UCF. As I'm watching the second half, I'm thinking, is Jeff Mittie going to back off this? Because it sped up the pace of the game quite a bit. And I'm like, you're kind of inviting a comeback, but no, K-State stretched that lead out. Without Aoka Lee, this team's really comfortable with pressure and running, and it's a fun brand of basketball.
Which is going to be tested tomorrow with West Virginia. But I think that was kind of what they weren't going to go full press against UCF. Hey, you're going to expend a whole bunch of energy you need tomorrow. But also kind of lets you feel it out. How's the press look? And it looked really good. I mean, they forced multiple turnovers in the backcourt of UCF. It looked good, and I think we might see more of it against West Virginia, which is something I wish they would have done in Morgantown, was answer the press with a press of their own. So that might just be Mittie saying, hey, let's just do it a few possessions, get it under our belt, and we'll bring it tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree with that, and we'll get to West Virginia here in a little bit, but let's talk some more about UCF. What exactly did the Knights do to kind of keep this game tight a little bit earlier in the game?
Like I said, they were scrappy today. It's hard to stop Caitlin Peterson. Yesterday against BYU, I don't remember. I think she had 36 points. Tonight she had 21 points, but on 7 of 22 shooting. And K-State was cold off, just out of the gate. K-State felt sluggish, slow. The offense wasn't moving well. Like I said, it's hard to get that offense going when Serena's not involved. Yep. But Ziana Walker did an amazing job in the first half. Without Serena really producing much, Zy led scoring at halftime with 11 points. It was a team effort, but UCF was, like I said, scrappy. When you have a player like Caitlin Peterson who can score 40-plus any night, they're going to be in the game. It's just keeping them at bay and not letting them get back in it.
Yeah, Zy was huge in that first half. She just took control. Was that one of her better games at K-State?
It's up there, I think, as a complete game. Second half, she's a little bit more quiet. She suffered. It wasn't a serious injury, but on a rebound, I think
saw that.
Caitlin, grabbed her elbow and pulled it weird. But without her in the first half, who knows if K-State's even leading at halftime. She had that last second putback before the halftime buzzer amongst the trees. I was sitting on the opposite side of the floor behind the K-State bench, and I still don't know how the hell she got that ball up and in. Because UCF has some really good size, believe it or not.
Yes,
They are
they do.
a very good size team. But no, that first half was, I think that's kind of showing what Zai can be. She's a really good player. She's very athletic. She's smart with the ball. She can go one-on-one against anyone, offensive and defensively. So she was a big part in the win today, even though most of it came in the first half.
Yeah, UCF tried to close that gap at halftime, but K-State was able to hold them off at 41-30 at the break, stalling it out just enough for Miss Sundell to get cooking. And Serena Sundell was outstanding in the second half. This is another time she's done this. She just, I'm not saying passive in the first half, but wasn't looking for her offense. And then I would imagine Jeff Mitty at halftime said, we need you to look for your shot. And she sure as heck did in the second half. She ended up 9 of 17 in this game. K-State actually shot 53.4% from the field and 50% from three-point line. We'll get to the three-point line in a second, but boy, Sundell was good.
Yeah, I mean, throwing the fact she only played 29 minutes, which for her is not a lot.
No.
21 points with 4 assists. That's pretty much you're giving your team a point a minute. She was unreal in the second half. On our game thread on the VIP boards, people at halftime were asking, where's Serena? She looks off. Is something wrong? Is she sick? And all I could say was, I don't know. Like, she didn't look distraught on the bench or anything. She just wasn't. And then, of course, she comes out in the second half and shuts all us up and completely dominates and becomes
good players do.
Yeah, and they're going to need that.
Credit my teammates, credit Coach Mitty kind of getting on me and saying you need to get into your teammates and let the rest work itself out. So that was my focus. It's hard to do when you're missing shots that I usually make, wide open layups and whatnot. But so for me to be able to get into my teammates and trust just the girls around me and that I'm going to start hitting shots, that was my focus.
The West Virginia game, like you said, we'll get into here in a little bit. She's going to have to take over once again. That the guards of West Virginia are damn good, and she needs to be a big part of that.
Yep, it's going to be interesting for K-State because West Virginia absolutely handled them in Morgantown late in the season. It wasn't really that competitive.
No.
They just took K-State out of everything they wanted to do, including running them off the three-point line, which UCF did a pretty good job with. Not as effective overall, but K-State only put up 10 threes, which for K-State's not very many, but they hit 5 of them. So they gave too many windows of opportunity for K-State to get shots off. But that was a strong point as we kind of look forward here to West Virginia, that the Mountaineers did that. They I can't remember how many shots. K-State almost didn't get any three-pointers up. They just didn't have opportunities there to go with the press, and they just dismantled everything K-State wanted. But they just saw it. I mean, they should understand exactly where all the pressure is coming from and what's going on. Because they just saw this in Morgantown, and this game ain't in Morgantown.
Yeah, and I think that's a big benefit because that first game, they had 45 hours from the end of the game they had on Saturday to get to Morgantown and play West Virginia at 1 p.m. on a Monday. This time around, the scheduling is just anything to get any national television.
Yep.
But this time, you've seen it now. You know what to expect. You're not down double digits. You don't have a home crowd against you. Honestly, you'll have the crowd for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to come down to, can you make the right adjustments when needed? Make West Virginia uncomfortable. They are great at making other teams just miserable. Yep. But when West Virginia struggles, like when they played TCU earlier in the year, TCU just ran their own game. In West Virginia, when they couldn't discomfort them, West Virginia just shut down and gave up. It's not letting West Virginia control your game. It's playing your game and making West Virginia have to guard it. Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be a huge challenge for Kansas State to do that. The guards are going to have to be better. They turned the ball over, and they looked rattled in that game. But again, that is West Virginia basketball in front of its home crowd with a pressing defense. We've seen it from the men's side. Now we've got it on the women's side, and it's fun to watch. It's not fun to be against, but it's fun to watch. But it proves to be far less effective on the road, where maybe you don't get as much support from your fan base in terms of your energy level. But let's be honest, you don't have that home crowd screaming at officials about every call they make. And unfortunately, and I hate saying this way, but it's the truth. When you play a team like West Virginia, the officials are in a big part of control. They have a lot of control in this game, because if they call a loose game, huge advantage West Virginia.
Yep.
If they call a tight game, huge advantage opponent. I'll just be interested to see how this shakes out. But no matter what, K-State's got to handle that pressure better.
Yeah, and like you said, if they're going to call it loose and let West Virginia get away with stuff, instead of whining, just do it to them. You showed you can press back.
Yep.
I mean, if you're struggling to find anything, just press back.
Yep. The teams that press don't like to be pressed for whatever reason.
It's because they think they know how to break it because they do it, but it's different. And K-State's a lot longer than West Virginia. The starting guards for West Virginia are 5'6", 5'8", and 5'9". K-State's 3 starting guards are 5'11", 6'1", and 6'2". You just got to play to your strengths. West Virginia is going to press the whole game. It doesn't matter if they're in foul trouble. You just cannot let them control the game.
No, you can't. And that's where those guards will come in a big role. But when you talk about West Virginia, you got to talk about JJ Quinerly, the 5'8" senior guard, putting up about 20 a game. Jeff Mitty raved about her in his post-game press conference after the UFC. I knew I was going to do it. UCF game. In fact, I'm going to drop this in right here.
I am a big JJ Quinerly fan most of the year. Okay? Not tomorrow. Okay? Now, we know she's talented. We know that she's playing extremely well. I thought she was one of those 4 or 5 players that was up for MVP of the league. Thought she had that kind of a year. We'll do everything we can to keep her in front, make things hard on her.
So what are your thoughts on Quinerly and what can K-State need to do?
Well, it's hard to stop her on defense. She's the defensive player of the year in the conference. Shocker. She's fast. She's great with her hands. But on offense, she has been red hot the last few games. I think she's dropped 30 plus in 2 of the last maybe 4 games for West Virginia. She's been playing at her best right now. It's going to come down to Ziana Walker again. Ziana Walker's done it. I mean, ever since she was a freshman against Caitlin Clark, she's capable of it. It's just making sure you don't let her get loose and stop her on offense. You're not going to stop her from getting steals. You're not going to stop her from being a nuisance in the press. But where you can stop her is staying in front of her on defense and making her have to go over defenders. The second she gets past a defender, it's over. She's either getting a layup or she's going to find someone open. So it's just staying tight. It's mostly just stopping her offense. It's going to come down to Ziana. And if she can stop her, then K-State has a good shot at winning.
Great point. The game's at 11 a.m. on Friday at T-Mobile Center in downtown Kansas City. It's the first game of the quarterfinals, as the women's tournament is now a week before the men's tournament. We got a dog appearance, always appreciated on the show. My dogs are hiding, so your dogs had to sub in. Is that still Gio?
No, that's Devin. She thinks it's time to eat.
Okay, well, that's always time to eat for dogs.
Yeah.
Is this a big advantage for K-State to be in Kansas City? I know the other schools from outside of the core of the Big 12 think it's a huge advantage to have these games in KC.
I saw someone tweet about how the Pac-12 tournament used to be in Las Vegas, and the attendance numbers are nowhere close to what the Big 12 tournament is in Kansas City. It's like okay, so we put it in Vegas so we can focus on other things than the actual tournament. I think it's dumb. Yeah. Of course it benefits K-State. There's a huge fan base in Kansas City area. It's great. last year, the support was great. I thought for an 11 a.m. Thursday game in Kansas City, there are a lot of K-State fans there. It helps, and the players notice it. And then when you're playing these tough games like West Virginia, last year against what they played West Virginia in the tournament, and it was a close game, but I really think the fan support got the Wildcats the victory last year. It helps a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong. There will be a good amount of West Virginia fans. They travel well.
Yeah.
Just leaving the game today, I saw at least 15, 20 of them just walking around. But it helps a lot, especially when you are going from losing to them in Morgantown, where they had all the advantage, to now where you get to come play at a neutral site where you'll probably have a pretty good advantage in fan support. And I think it'll help.
Well, it's going to be interesting. Kansas State, West Virginia, 11 a.m. on Friday. Wake up, get ready for it. I love the 11 a.m. games. I was telling you this. You had to drive back home because my lazy sister, I didn't want to go to this game. It was a work?
I know she had teach students today or something. I was
Whatever.
They don't need an education.
That's what she gets for being a professor.
Yep.
Before we close up shop, let's talk about this. I'm a little cautious of the projections of Kansas State still being on the 4 line. Maybe this shorted up. I'm not sure. I think a lot of it at play here is the fan support, the crowds that they will have turn out, because I think they played their way off the 4 line, but I think the fans and the attendance put them back on it. So I thought this game was huge, and I think certainly beating West Virginia takes the committee off the hook because they're solidly on the 4 line if they do that.
Yeah, a loss today, they would not have hosted. End of story. That's a quad. That's close to a quad 4 loss. No, and I think the part that helps K-State a lot is the net rankings. K-State's still the number 9 team in the net. The committee likes looking at that, so that helps a lot. There's also been a lot of positive results since their loss at Iowa State. Big one today was Tennessee lost. Tennessee was one of the 5 seeds trying to steal the last spot from K-State, but they lost to Vanderbilt in the second round of the SEC tournament. So that's a bad loss for them. So that's another team out that's not going to steal the bid. But for K-State, if you want to control it, beat West Virginia and you feel pretty safe about it. But losing to West Virginia, you're going to be nervous going into Selection Sunday. But other results could help you a lot and keep you there.
Honestly, we're a challenge for the committee. We need to do everything we can to make it easy on them. Obviously, we're playing without the preseason player of the year. We only lost 1 game all year with her, but you know what? This team's won a lot of games without her. So we need to do everything we can to make it as easy, and the teams that are going to be left tomorrow are playing for a Big 12 championship, so that's our focus.
It's going to be interesting to see how that all pans out, but this one was big as K-State beats UCF in their first game of the Big 12 tournament. It was UCF's second game as they had to run the 5-game gauntlet, but gone in 2. K-State's got 1 under their belt, 3 to go if they want to be champion, or at least play in the championship game. And it starts with West Virginia in the morning. E will be there. I will be here. What's your feeling about this game, Ethan?
Better than I was going into Morgantown. It's hard with the way the season finished to be just to have any optimism, but this is a senior driven team. They still have a bunch of goals within reach. I know this team wants nothing more than to host the NCAA tournament. They know a win against West Virginia would almost guarantee that for them. They have goals they still want to reach, and they're not going to quit on the season. So there's no reason to quit on them now or after tomorrow or whatever happens.
And one goal is get Aoka Lee back for the NCAA tournament. We'll see if that happens, but that's a little bit down the road. Ethan, thank you very much. Have safe travels back to Kansas City. Now, look, I'm glad you enjoy the court, but for all of us at home, maybe that's what they're trying to do. Sell those tickets, get everyone there.
Yeah, looks ugly on TV, but in person looks a lot better. That's smart.
Yep. That's it for this edition of the Powercat Podcast. We'll be back real soon with another topic for you to mull on, and the shoot-around, the Friday shoot-around, of course, will be here on Friday. Imagine that. Thanks, E.
Yep.
This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.